It's like during the pandemic, like I learned, so a lot of people blame the decisiveness, the divide in the country on the politics. The politics was the wheelbarrow that carried it. What it really
Hmm.
is these Facebook groups, these small circles of people that interact socially online that all have the same opinions. So when if in a group of people with the same opinion, it cocoons your body, your mind into thinking what you're doing is not that wrong. So if you're a pedophile in a room full of pedophiles, at a certain point, you don't even realize it's wrong anymore. So now
Hmm.
you got these small groups, they like micro groups that believe in whatever, January 6th or woo woo, whatever like this. And now they all are starting to get the like mindedness from these social groups. And so now you hear some of the worst opinions about things. Now you gotta contend with them because there's so many people that believe some like despicable. You be like,
Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Today, we will talk about the R in my rope acronym. It reminds us of the importance of being in healthy relationships. So, what is a healthy relationship anyway? It can be defined in many ways and depends on our preferences, our goals, and even our life experiences. We all want our relationships to feel safe and supportive. But there are times when our relationships can cause us trauma. When this happens, we call this a trauma bond or a toxic relationship. So, what is a trauma bond after all? Trauma bonds are bonds that commonly form as a result of abusive relationships. They are the surface level feelings of attachment and intimacy that can result from an abusive cycle. In a trauma bond, partners think they have true love or connection, even though the relationship is harmful. Trauma bonds aren't simply a challenging relationship, they are deeply rooted in our basic need for attachment and security. The abuser wields tremendous power and control that compound with shame and embarrassment, making it impossible for their abused partner to leave. And here are some of the signs of trauma bond. It includes things like lying about the abuse to friends and family, feeling like the abuse is your fault, constantly trying to explain your partner's defects in a positive light, feeling like you have no choice in the relationship, and believing that you can change the abuser's behavior over time. Today, I have a guest who will share his experiences with relationships and trauma to provide all of us some perspective as we try to have healthy relationships in our lives. Today's guest is Kevin Muhammad, also known as DJ Khalik. He's basically a master barber and a DJ. And for over the last 30 years, he's been doing that wonderful work, operating and owning a beauty and barber salon. He's an event space operator, a media company person, and also a serial entrepreneur. He's also, quote, just a little brother trying to earn my right to be on the earth. And I was so happy to meet him at an event. It was an event I spoke at for Kane County in Aurora, that's in the Illinois area in the United States. It was an event where I share some of my principles of healing, as many of you who follow me understand, for an audience that had never heard me. So, my brother, I really appreciate you being here and thank you for coming to the podcast today.
hey, thank you for having me.
Amen. I appreciate that. It was we had a nice conversation as you DJ for the event. So when I walked up to the stage, you was the first person to greet me. And what was interesting after the event is that we started talking about relationships, and that conversation really intrigued me. And I said, you know what? I got this ROPE acronym. We talk about relationships. So let's bring this brother to the show so you can share your perspective. So as we get started, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are? And obviously they know what your day job is a little bit, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name, like you said, my name is Keith Muhammad. I was born Kevin Phillips, so had my name changed when I got into. got into Islam when I was young. So when I had a name change when I was like 30 years old, I didn't want to pass the name again. So I then started cutting hair when I was younger, me and my brother, just to do something around the house. Never really wanted to do it for a living, but one thing turned to another. And this would be my 35th year cutting hair as a professional. Same thing with DJing, trying to start it around the house, things like that. So one thing turned to another, and before you know, I can make a few dollars doing this, and I'm pretty diligent with anything I do. So stayed with them. So turned it to a career. So it's been a blessing. Every time I try to get away from it, it never makes sense because I can
Right.
always try to I can do something else and still go back to the barbershop. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I became a serial entrepreneur, just trying different things, different ideas. I believe the things God put in your head, if you think on it more than a week or two, it may be something you need to manifest and bring it to the world.
Yeah, well, first of all, my barber plays a very important role in my life, and I think that relationship, when you have somebody, when you're sitting in that chair for 30 minutes or so, particularly as it relates to the topic for today, which is relationships, a barber sometimes becomes your therapist and gives a lot of relationship advice. So I think that's kind of cool. And then I'm curious about the music part because I know for a lot of people, I remember one of my favorite albums was Lauryn Hill's Miseducation album.
One
And
of my
you can
favorites.
sit there and listen. Yeah, she was cold, man. And you can listen to music. It's almost spiritual. And music has a strong impact on our emotions. And it literally shifts how you think, how you feel, why you experience it. So we're talking a little bit about relationships, trauma, even you can call that mental health. You know, what personal experiences can you think of that where you found music as a form of therapy to help people? Do you even see it that way?
Yeah. Well, let me speak first to what you first said about the barber. I first ran into the fact that being a barber, I'm going to be a counselor when I was very young. I was 20 years old. The shop I was in was owned by an older guy, so there was a lot of older clients in there. And I found myself 22, 23 years old giving advice to, or not even giving advice. I heard like 40, 50-year-old men asking me for advice. And I was like, I don't know, I'm 20 years old. What I quickly learned is that's a part of that position. And even though I couldn't advise them properly, they trusted that the business would stay with me. They just had someone to talk to and things like that. Now, as far as the second part, to answer your question, so music is like I got childhood sexual trauma.
Mm,
So a big part of that, my music and the trauma go hand in hand. So it's a soother for the trauma, and it's always has been music. I'm in love with music, and as a DJ, first I'll say 95% of the records I play are not the records I listen to because I have to play with the crowd here. But music is very therapeutic. It's like it's not just the music and the tones and all that. It's just more into the words and to the lyrics. Like you mentioned, Lauryn Hill, heard that Miseducation is a beautiful album, but I encourage people to go listen to her Unplugged and not even, Unplugged is when they put the rappers with the band. She's got an
hmm
acoustic guitar, and it's not even the songs, it's the commentary in between the songs where she
mm,
just simply explaining she just got sick of the music industry and the deadlines, and she wanted to go by a lifeline. She wanted to be creative, and the business took all that away from her. And it's really, she breaks down crying and all that, but it's really a heavy thing to deal with. But if we understood our African roots, like music, you're a doctor, so your instruments, the tools you use for surgery, are instruments. A guitar is an instrument. So the origins of a lot of music with the tones and vibrations is through health.
mm,
That's how the Africans used it. So
mm.
even though we are not aware that it's an actual physical thing that's happening to you while you listening to songs and things like this, but it really is just because of the tones and the vibration. If you understand vibration, the low bass tones activate your lower um, chakras. So that's
Mm.
why people shake their booty to bass music. You know what I'm saying? It's a real thing happening there.
Yeah, I believe that. I may not have the knowledge to kind of go deep with that, and sounds like you've been thoughtful about this whole space. But I tell you, it all makes sense. Even when I see babies, how they respond to
Oh,
music at early ages, it's like nobody taught them. They just kind of naturally respond that way, and that's really kind of cool. And you mentioned, you're kind of speaking about culture and things of that nature, and I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about that in terms of like your cultural background. And since we're talking about relationships, do you think you handle relationships maybe differently because of your cultural background? It's kind of an obvious yes, but think about, what does that look like for you? How has your background, your culture influenced how you deal with relationships?
oh yeah. So, well, one thing being a barber, same thing with being a DJ. I'm exposed to a lot of people, and one thing that I learned in relationships, most people got a small, close knit environment, and people are all like minded, so they don't have a lot of different experiences. So it's like growing up in one neighborhood and never experiencing the rest of the world. You're only going to know so much.
Hmm.
So when I can sit there in a day, I can hear 50 different opinions about the same subject. Where most people only gonna bounce it off somebody that they agree with or have some level of
Hmm.
science like mindedness or something like that. But so having that, I guess you could call it diverse experience. A lot of times when you go into relationships, you're with people that don't have that. So it makes my mind freer to certain things. I'm
Hmm.
exposed to certain things. And then just like anything else, just like a good preacher or a good counselor, when you're counseling me, you're also counseling yourself.
Hmm.
So by just talking every day, I hear opinions. So it don't matter. It could be Democrats or Republicans. It don't matter. I understand both sides of it because I hear both sides and I got a full understanding. And at the end of the day, the political position really don't matter. You're like, but it matters so much because most people are Republicans that hang with Republicans and got
Yeah,
Republican ideas, or Democrats that hang with Democrats and got Democrats. I hear so much. I even hear the independents. So I'm like,
that's right.
you might like what you might not like the person, and that's what most politics is about. It's about personality. But you might
Yeah.
not like the person, but I can understand what you're saying. So that coming into relationships and having that wide range of thought process, or like I would say, like my wife when we first met, she would say certain things. I'd be like, she would say like, you can't wear white after Labor Day. I was like, who told you that? And like over time, you know what I'm saying? She was like, well, you just like a rebel. No, I'm not a rebel. It's like, what? Why you can't? Like I've always questioned everything, and that goes along with my origins. I was always my mom always say, hey, this boy never believed in Santa Claus, the boogeyman, and nobody. But everything has to make sense to me.
We're on the same page. I would even be controversial in saying, question religion, question your politics, question your,
Yes,
your traditions in your family. Why would we not question those things? Why would we not ask the pastor or the book we read to explain itself? If we can't get answers that we're comfortable with, then Houston, we have a problem. I've always been that way. I question everything. Even when I hear information that supports my current thinking, I force myself to still question it. Whenever I get information, my previous ways of looking at nutrition have changed. Even as I move towards low carb, keto, carnivore, when I see a study that favors that way of thinking, I still question it. Is it a quality study? Who did it? Who sponsored it? All of these things that we have to think about, and our beliefs are, literally the E in the rope acronym that talks about life experiences. Our life experiences absolutely define who we become, but we should question some of that stuff. Just because your grandmama told you it was right, don't mean that it was right. So I love that. Now let's speaking of experiences, what kind of intrigued me when I talked to you was you shared some of your personal experiences that dealt around the struggle you had in your relationship. So let's talk a little bit about what struggles you had so we can kind of lay that as a foundation.
yeah. I mean, well, I'm pretty good at unpacking like the. I'm mechanically inclined. So when you're mechanically inclined, this belt moves this cog moves this, and the motor turns and the transmission. So you can get to the essence of the problem. You come troubleshooting. You're probably scientific, so that makes you question everything because of the science. So, so like detachment. I understand I have detachment issues. I have trust issues. I have a bunch of issues. And most time I can find the origin of the trust issues. And I was very young. I mean, I had to become very mature at a very young age. You know what I'm saying? So I've been very independent, like really like all of my life, pretty much. Even though I had a mother, I had a stepfather, I had a good family, but just having to deal with certain things on my own. My mom knew I was efficient. Mother knows their children. So she knew I was very efficient and could handle whatever, pretty much whatever on my own. And then so she would let me do that. Where she may be hands on with one of my other brothers or something like that. It was a little less hands on. So it's a bit of some abandonment issues. Not to blame. One thing I want to say this before I say the rest of this. Every situation we in, God put us in. So I don't have no regrets about nothing.
Yeah.
So I think what we have to do as an adult is figure out and try to see to make the best of the things we've been through. And what I find happens a lot, we turn into adults that whine and cry about things that when we were going through them, when you was 8 years old and your daddy wasn't around, whatever your situation was, you was playing kickball, having a ball with all the rest of the kids. Then we turn adults and start complaining about things we didn't complain about at the time it was happening. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I wanted to say that first, but so like a lot of relationship issues. My biggest problem, my biggest thing most time in relationships is the lack of respect. We live in a country where well, I'll just say just for generally speaking, we live in a place where male feelings and emotions are really not attended to or cared about, things like that. So
That's right.
a lot of things, respect, stuff like that. I bump into a lot of those kind of problems, and it goes back to my childhood. So like being mouthy, stuff like that. Like I have being yelled at, stuff like that is really
Right.
tough. I'm getting to once you understand the essence of the problem, you can start to healing with the problem. And I get to the problem, so now you know what? You just talking. You know what I'm saying? You just woof. I grew up in an environment where the neighborhood I'm from, you had to at least be willing to fight. So you don't have to
Mhm.
be a great fighter, but somebody's gonna be taking your lunch money, your kickball, your big
Right.
meal. You know what I'm saying? Unless you can defend yourself. So I grew up kind of fisticuff in an environment where if he throw his hands up, you throw your hands up. Turn into an adult and start finding out that some of the ladies we be in a relationship with, they just talking. But where I'm
Mm.
from, that talking, could cost
That's
you a
confrontation.
black eye.
Right.
so, until you're aware that you're dragging those things into adulthood and start to do something about them, you make a lot of mistakes.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, and all of this sounds like a reason to get therapy because you said
Yes,
I have
yes,
trust issues. Well, how the heck you going to get over your trust issues if you don't talk to somebody who understands how to help you get over your trust issues? You said lack of respect as a child. Now, I know that growing up on the west side of Chicago, you better come correct or they're going to take advantage of you big time. And then because of that, how we respond to confrontation is a little different than maybe in other communities. And if you don't respond with a little strength, a little force, they're going to take advantage of you. So, and then, man, imagining all of that's going to then affect my relationship with that significant other is crazy. And that's why we all have blind spots. We all have areas in our lives we can do better. And that's why for anybody checking out this episode, if you've never just had a conversation with at least a relationship coach, whether it's individual or as a couple, please consider it because they'll open up some awareness of things that you hadn't really thought about. And sometimes it takes a third party to help you see what you can't see. Now, having said that, I think about, non-professionals like friends and family, right? And you would hope that they are able to support you when you're struggling with trauma or in a relationship. Have you found that beyond a therapist that you get enough from friends and family when you're going through some things?
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the barbershop, so I got. I mean, a lot of times in the barbershop, because of the kind of person I am, energy draws energy, and so I got a lot of professional clients. I got a lot of clients that are really well versed in a lot of different things. So a lot of times our powwow sessions are not who's better, LeBron or Mike. Our powwow sessions
Mm-hmm.
are about relationships and hands-on, saying how to deal with things and things like that. So yeah, I have a million people to talk to. Like I said, I got a million ideas. I have 4 professional life coaches. I never have formal sessions, but I can call, and they're not formal because they don't charge me. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
I will sit down and I'll say, well, what do you think about this? So I have that available to me. Then not so much family, but I can say friends that I can just open up to. And but it's a need there for that. And
Mm-hmm.
me and one of my friends, we're developing a group that's gonna address that for black males. But I can say, yeah, and then something I'm starting to discover. I'm really I really over the years kind of being the oldest child and being a bit of a loner and a bit of an introvert, just a little bit, which is gonna be hard for everybody to believe, but I really can talk to myself. I really can talk myself off the bridge. And
Mm-hmm.
what what I'm learning, and one of my I got a female life coach, and she's one telling me, she said, everybody can't do that. And I always thought, just like you think everybody's situation like yours. That inner voice, like I literally hear my inner voice say, man, get somewhere, sit down. What are you doing? I can hear it. And I'm used to listening to it. You know what I'm saying? So I could say, I don't want to say non-biased because it's not cold and total, but I can non-biased be getting ready to do something silly. I'm like, man, don't do that. Or making, even like when I'm on the computer, my wife used to laugh when I be cussing myself. Like, damn it, Keegan. You know what I'm saying? Just, I talk out loud like that to myself. And I really think we all have an inner voice. I just
Mm-hmm.
think we don't all listen to it. So one of my biggest problems in relationships is I'm a problem solver. And
Mm-hmm.
you can hit me upside the head, you can cuss me out, you do whatever. But if I got a chance at fixing the problem, I'm almost cool with whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
We all gonna make mistakes. At the moment the person starts defending what you're doing, I go bonkers because now you hamper my ability to fix what's wrong. And if I can't
Right.
fix what's wrong, I only got 2 choices.
Yeah.
I can either deal with you or I got to get away from you.
Right.
And if I'm dealing with it, then I'm dealing with something that's beneath me. And I really feel like that.
Man, listen, let me say this. One of the things that we use regularly is Dr. John Gottman, 7 Principles of Marriage. And one of the principles is stonewalling. And stonewalling simply means you're talking to somebody and they're not hearing nothing you saying. They're just like a stone face, right? And so what I learned in a relationship, in my marriage, even at work or with the kids, you have to look at people's body language, right? So if you're trying to sell something or make a point, problem solve, and you're not paying attention to the receiver of the information, then you may not be reaching them. So one thing I learned is notice if they're doing that. And if they are doing that, I back away. I try to kind of slow down with them, and then I try to meet them where they are so I can kind of get them back on track. And sometimes you can't do it in interaction. Sometimes you got to do it. You got to say, let's not talk now. Let's let things settle. You're a little emotional, and that's the value of having. You said you had a female life coach.
Yeah.
So first of all, to all the guys,
So now
go tell me.
that goes to some of my best friends are females. I got two female business partners. Um, I understand like it started when I was younger. We moved up from Mississippi when it's time for me to start school. My mother worked second shift at the Bisco. So I was pretty much in the care of her brother's daughters. So my cousin, there's four of them. These were they 90% of who I am is because of these four ladies. But they
Hmm.
were ladies. That's where I got the music from. They was teenagers in the 70s, Jackson 5, Earth, Wind, Fire, all that type. So I got the music for them. But their golden life is I wasn't gonna be no punk.
Oh, okay. That
And
sounds very familiar.
these were tough women. These were the kind of girls that beat the boys up. You know, it was those kind of girls. So I was in their care. So at a very early age, I understood the value of a woman. So a lot of times, if you find a woman that's a safe space, you got a jewel. It's like something. It's like it's hard to find because the guys can take you so far,
That's
and
right.
the guys, at a certain point, the egos and all that low. But when you want to really dump, dump, in my opinion, it works for me. I'll say that. I find females. And also, I'll tell people, I'll give people a simple analogy in religion. Jesus had 12 disciples. All of them, one by one, when he got in trouble or when they came against him, they all fell off. And he had three females take him to the cross and all the way to the tomb.
That's deep. I didn't catch that, and that's and and I just love it, man. When you said you ain't gonna be no punk, that
Oh,
resonates with me because I was always my brother was he's older, and everybody trying. I'm a nice guy, soft spoken. Everybody trying to protect you, but in the hood, you cannot afford to be no punk. It ain't gonna.
and
They will
these were
eat you
girls.
alive. So
These were girls. And I
yeah,
know, like, quit crying. I'm 7. I just hit my kneecap. Quit crying. That was
seven.
like, but a lot of what we go through comes from that. So that
Yeah,
not being able to feel, not being able to let
right.
come out, not even being able to cry. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. A lot of that comes from that era. And one thing I'm learning with younger people, I'm a person I don't beat up on the younger people. I look at the younger people and I see some quirks that they got, but a lot of what they're not in these situations. They don't have to be cool. They don't have to be tough. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? In my group, either use the cool kids, the athletes, the burnouts, you know what I'm saying, like this. But now you see one group and it'd be a cool kid, a nerd. They don't mind being nerds no more. You know what I'm saying? And they might have a homosexual crew, all in the same crew. We grew up like this, we segregated ourselves like that.
Hmm. Wow. Man, check this out. So, one of the things I want the men to hear is that it doesn't have to be a guy if you have a coach or a therapist. It's okay for it to be a woman. In fact, it may be to your advantage to have a female. And I would easily argue in my life, it was a female therapist that was impactful for, marriage stuff for sure. So, I want to say that first. Number two, yeah, there are advantages to having a person of color if you're a person of color. It's
Yes.
probably an advantage to have a Asian if you're Asian, or I don't know. All I'm saying is don't let that be a barrier. I just need you to talk to somebody, and
Yeah.
then and sometimes you don't have the choices that you need to have.
Yeah. And
So
I like if you're from a hood, you probably need somebody to understand how a hood functions.
that's
So
right.
one of the females I talked to, she shared this with me. She said she liked having men clients because men are goal oriented for the most part. And she said a man wanted to see what the problem is, how to get to the solution, how to get
Yeah,
it fixed.
yeah.
She said most of my female clients, they just really want somebody to kind of agree with. Like, and when she said that, I was like, really? Because But if you go back to, and that's no dis. So one of like why the female probably does better in a relationship is because I listen to Mr. Farrakhan a lot. Mr. Farrakhan say one of the reasons we're not successful in relationship as men is because we deny too much of our feminine side. And in a relationship, we have to go to the nurturing. We have to be soft. We have to be forgiving. We have to be all those things. And sometimes if you're too masculine, that's one of my problems. I'm too masculine in a relationship. I need this problem fixed, and I need it fixed right now. So, so it takes patience to get things fixed. Like one thing you just mentioned, and one of my clients put in my ear. He's married to a therapist, and he put this in my ear. He said in his relationship, his wife want to get it fixed right now because I
Mm-hmm.
told him that's my problem. I want to we this because I'm that's how it works for me. If you tell me it's something you don't like right now that I said, I'll never say it to you again. That's just how I respond. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but he said in his relationship is turned around. He's the one to be like, you know what? I don't want. Let's not talk about this right now. Let's come back to it. We'll like this. And I was like, man, I wish I could be that, and I'm trying to be that because it takes patience to get certain things done.
Yeah, and I think as you evolve as a human being, you don't necessarily have to go do a 360 and be completely unlike you are today. But if you can get a little closer, and that's part of what happens when you're coached, you're taught how to see things through a different lens, and then maybe add a little bit of that lens to who you are, but you can still be who you are. So, in terms of you're at the barbershop, you do some things in the entertainment space, you entertain. As you are interacting with the world, right? What are you hearing from other people in terms of their willingness to utilize mental health professionals? Are you finding that people are more open to it now than they were in the past?
Our people, especially, but more with the younger children, the younger people. People in our age group still have a little stigma, but
Mm-hmm.
we're getting away from it. But we're changing slowly. But I think amongst the younger people, um, it's not even a big deal anymore. Because when we grew up, like yeah, you going to see a shrink was a big deal. Like no, something's
Hmm.
wrong. No, some we live in a place. We live in a place where you can watch. You can turn on the news and see 6 murders every day. And when you don't react to that, you that's trauma. You'll normalize your trauma. So we live in a place where we see despicable things go on. You know what I'm saying? And like we've learned to manage through those things. And like, oh, it does bother you no matter what. Like you can't. It used to be a time they wouldn't put certain things on TV. Maybe like my wife used to love to watch one of the one of the channels where they would have births every morning. I'd be like, why would we
Hmm.
get up watching this every morning? Like, I don't want to see nobody having a baby all split open like this. But there used to be a time you wouldn't see that on TV. But they normalize a lot of things. So the point I'm trying to make is we all got some level of mental illness. What I see with the younger people in the 20s and the 30s, they are more willing to deal with it. What I see with people in my age group, we use it as a crutch.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I and like people, and I'm it's just no diss to nobody. I don't judge people. I hear so many people say they got anxiety. Anxiety is a souped up word for worry. And I'm a person that God is a heavy influence in my life. And I tell people if you trust God, there's nothing to worry about. I was explaining to my friend, my son drives back and forth out of town to pick my daughter up. And she was like, that don't. I said, yeah, I'm concerned. I said, but I trust God. So if he drives and make it safe, I say, thank God. If he flips the truck
Mhm.
5 times, thank God. Whatever outcome, back to what I'm saying, everything we've been through and all that, God put us through everything. So what I need to learn is if he does wreck the car, what is it for me to learn and get out of that and get over it or that lesson with him? How do I get him through it? But everything that happens is supposed to happen.
Yeah. And I like that framing because if you have faith and you believe what you preach, then it should take away some of that stress. Like it should, because why are you worrying about stuff that's not even your job description. That's somebody supposed to be greater than you dealing with that. So why you worried about it? So I think that is amazing, and I think people should say, understand that.
You just spoke to a point. I was day before yesterday. I was joking with my friend. I was telling her, she deals with some anxiety. I was telling her, I said, most of the people that I know that have anxiety, what is the problem? They cause their own anxiety. She's like, why? I said, because 90% of the things you're thinking about is really just not your business. If you just learn what is your business and what is not your business, like at the end of the day, 90% of what you hear, like, what you think they woo woo, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
It's not my business. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you think about stuff? I don't care. And back to the politics, when I'm in the shop, so I'll say this, politically speaking, this is my stance. They're all snakes. So the Democrats are cobras. The Republicans are rattlesnakes. The rattlesnakes gonna make some noise before you hear it. The cobras, they
Right.
just real slick with it. But they all snakes. So when I'm in the shop, we have these big blow-ups. I'll be like, so I say, okay, well, you're a Republican. Tell me what they did for you. You're a
That's
Democrat. Tell
right.
me what they did for you.
That's right.
Like nothing. They giving you something to argue about while they all stealing on the backside.
That's
So what
right.
I'm saying is, if we just mind our business, you know what I'm saying, we would have less to worry about, less to deal. I learned when I was younger. I used to be in the car radios. So and I realized putting car radios, the more components you got on that radio, the more things that are gonna break down. So I said, you know what? I'll just leave the factory radio in there. You know what I'm saying? The more
Seriously.
you have, the more you have to worry about. So a
Yeah.
lot of times people like to hold on to things. That causes you anxiety because you won't release them.
Yeah.
People like
Medical.
to dip in certain situations because if you would just get out of that situation, if you just mind it for what makes you tick or gets your day off, where you work, your chill, if you just minded that little circle right there, it really ain't a whole lot to worry about inside that circle.
That's right. And I think about what I consume. One of some of the things that I've enjoyed over the years are war movies. One of my favorite was I think it was HBO. It was The Band of Brothers,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was. You remember that? I loved it because it felt so closer to the action. Since it was such a long series, you can. I always remember learning that. Yeah, if you're in that little bunker for days and days, you may put yourself with some cold feet. That could be a problem. You know what I mean? So it was interesting to kind of watch that. But I tell my patients, you know, it's okay to consume things if it don't bother you. So if you can handle it, consume it. If you can't handle it, don't consume it because if you consume stuff, particularly like local news in a city like Chicago, and you can't handle the crime, then you may want to lessen your exposure to that because it's really not adding value to your life, and you certainly can't do much about it. And if you normalize the trauma of consuming this stuff over and over again, that micro trauma will make you sick over time. And the way, from a doctor perspective, I'm thinking the fight and flight, adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol. Now your
Yeah,
sugar level goes up. Now you got a risk for diabetes, your pressure high, all of these things, and you're just consuming it every day. And we have to recognize that it's okay to have awareness of what's going on in your community, etc. But rarely are the things on the news really going to directly impact you. So you need to relax, focus on something else. You need to go watch Andy Griffin or something like that, something that'll keep you away
one
from all of that stress.
I discovered this new thing a few months ago, and this guy I be listening to, I can't think of his name, but he explains how even if you say whatever, you got surgery next week, the body, once you're stressing about the surgery, the brain don't know the difference between you thinking about it or you actually going through the surgery. So when I heard that, I was like, wow. So the
Yeah,
brain is going to release everything is going to release as though you're going through the surgery. So
that's
by the
right.
time you get to the surgery, now you in double trouble. But like one thing, my mom, she watches the news. I tell her all the time. She kind of worries. I'll be in the city a lot, whatever. She be like, "Oh, 7 people got killed in Chicago." I was like, "Yeah, it's just 3 million people in Chicago." So, So that
Right.
means that means out of 2 million people, only 7 got killed. So the other almost 3 million people had a nice day yesterday. You know what I'm saying? But you're concentrating on that. The dangerous thing about that is two things. Number one, you are what you consume, not just what you eat, what you see, what you hear, what you meditate on, you become. Then the other thing, the other part of that is like when you when you don't know how to detox or how to just let it roll off your back, you
Hmm.
meditate, especially when you watch the 10 o'clock news. You go to sleep with that in your spirit. You know what I'm saying? So chances are you're gonna wake up with it. Or you might dream about it and things like that. So now your body had a whole experience based on something you didn't personally experience, but
Right.
your body experienced it as though you went through it. And that's it's really dangerous.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think perception becomes reality. While you were talking, I said, let me just Google and see what they consider the most dangerous cities in the United States right now. Chicago got that reputation, right? So I'm looking at it right now. Number one, Detroit. Number two, Memphis. Birmingham, Alabama, Baltimore, Maryland, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. Number seven was Cleveland, Ohio, Little Rock, Arkansas, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Stockton, California. Chicago didn't even make the top 10.
Yeah.
So it's all, but like you said, per capita um,
So
is
that's
probably, yeah.
and I tell something else I tell people. If you go look at Chicago um, murder numbers, the murder rate was higher in the 90s. It's the way
Wow.
they report it now. You see what I'm saying? It's the way, you got news. Back then, you could only watch the morning news, the late afternoon news, and the nightly news. Now you got
Mm,
news on your phone all day.
that's
Now
true.
it's coming up on Instagram, it's coming on Facebook. So it seems more dangerous. It's like during the pandemic, like I learned, so a lot of people blame the decisiveness, the divide in the country on the politics. The politics was the wheelbarrow that carried it. What it really
Hmm.
is these Facebook groups, these small circles of people that interact socially online that all have the same opinions. So when you in a group of people with the same opinion, it cocoons your body, your mind into thinking what you're doing is not that wrong. So if you're a pedophile in a room full of pedophiles, at a certain point, you don't even realize it's wrong anymore. So now
Hmm.
you got these small groups, they like micro groups that believe in whatever, January 6th or woo woo, whatever like this. And now they all are starting to get the like mindedness from these social groups. And so now you hear some of the worst opinions about things. Now you got to contend with them because there's so many people that believe some like despicable. You be like, and now I find myself saying this a lot in the shop nowadays. Just because it's the popular opinion doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
Because the popular opinion now is wild.
Oh yeah, you don't want to know. And you again, you get a chance to have these conversations in the work you do at the barbershop, et cetera. And I think about the marginalized communities, the communities that have less resources. They're facing a lot of challenges, and it just feels like they don't really have access to that coach that maybe me and you have access to. So any thoughts? I mean, I know you support the community just by being in it, just by talking to the brothers that you get a chance to chat with, who you're providing that service to for a haircut. Anything else you have thought about that can help reach people? I know you mentioned you got a group going.
Yeah.
What other
Well,
things can we do to help? Any thoughts?
so we were. I've been flirting with ideas. So I'm sitting in my event space now. So because of my religious backgrounds, I got a lot of conflicts. Like I know as a DJ, it's my craft, but I know I drive a lot of people to a lot of social ills.
Hmm.
On a Friday, Saturday night, the music drives into drinking, sexual promiscuity, everything like. So a lot of things I do, I try to balance. So with the event space, I wanted to do something different. So we do a financial services thing once a month. So I wanted to do something with men
Mm-hmm.
because we really live in a place, and this is no knock to nobody. I don't judge nobody. We live in a place where a man could literally have an entire family, wife, 2 or 3 children, and be living a nightmare and don't have nobody to talk to because the, the just the day to day walk of him working, taking care of his children, all that is killing him. And if if he decides or if he has a bad day at work, there's nobody in the house to talk to because the expectation is for a certain thing. So I was reading this piece where this woman was talking and she said she had wrote a book about what women were going through. He said, I noticed you didn't mention the men. She said, I'm doing a study on men. He said it's convenient. He said, but the women in my life won't let me fail. They
Mm.
can't. They will not. They'd rather me die on my horse, is what he said. They'd rather me die on my horse than for me to get down off of it. And so I was starting a group. Then we had a young man out here in Aurora that I'm very familiar with. He committed suicide, and that was like the third, fourth suicide I know of in the last maybe 6 months of people
Mm.
that I either knew very well or I knew their parents. And so it put in my mind, you know, and we got to do something. So it made me fast forward the situation. So what we're creating is a group. We want to create a group that's a safe space for men. It's going to take us to carve it out and do them. But we want the brothers to lay the egos to the side, all that. We don't want nobody coming in, oh, I'm a professional in this. Let's just lay all this garbage to the side and let's
Mm-hmm.
discuss one by one what was the worst thing happened to you this week. Let's just open it up. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And just like we and the idea is in the Nation of Islam, they say black people are in this condition that we are the only people who can get us out of the condition. Nobody else cares. So that's the same idea with the brothers. Nobody else cares if you had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to start being nurturing, patient. We have to take the female attributes for each other because and it's going to take a certain kind of brother to even be in the group. You have to be a certain level of transparency. You got to lay your pride and your ego at the door. A lot of brothers is burdened by that, and that,
Mm-hmm.
and, and that's where we're at fault when it comes to dealing with our social ills or our feelings and things because we have to be tough, and we
Mm-hmm.
really don't have to. We
Okay.
were socialized to be that way, and like that same thing I'm saying about the fighting. I was socialized that somebody throw their hands up, you throw your hands up. It took me to get 40, 45, 50 years old to realize, man, you want to fight with yourself. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to fight you.
Right. Right.
It took
Okay.
me 40 years to get there, though. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have to fight. But it's because I was real at the time. Somebody throw their hands up, you throw your hands up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You know, when I hear you speak, I hear a strong spiritual foundation,
Sure.
and I'm thinking about my audience, right? So I have an audience that's a lot of people who are not African American, a lot of people who are not Muslim. So I want you to kind of talk a little bit about uh, kind of two things. One is how would you kind of share a little bit about your faith with an audience that's not familiar with it? People hear Farrakhan, they freak out, right? The other part of the question is, what has your spirituality done to support your mental health journey and well-being? So part of it is, what's up with this Muslim thing, Nation of Islam, and then how has that? Because before you even answer, I have kind of an uncle through marriage. Shout out to George Muhammad, right? And prior to joining the Nation of Islam, without getting too personal about him, he was not the man he is today. I mean, his
Exactly.
whole life was transformed from a man who maybe was in the street a little bit to a man who is literally a service to the community and a mentor for so many young black men. So he's just a phenomenal person. I'm gonna make sure he hears this episode so he can hear that. But but I just know that there's so much good that comes from having that affiliation. So I want to hear a little bit, just so my audience can understand a little bit more about your foundation from a spiritual perspective and how it's kind of, how do you integrate that into your journey when it comes to mental health and things like
Well,
that?
it's probably the number one thing. So the inner voice, we'll start there. No, I'll start here. One thing they teach you in the Nation of Islam is you're, you're the greatest thing God made next to himself. So the only thing that has power over you is either God or the thing that you give power to.
Hmm.
So it's not the cigarette. You have to buy it. You have to unwrap it. You have to pull it up. You got to light it. You just got to pull it. So is the cigarette have power or is it you? They make you very familiar with the fact that the devil that's causing the hell in your life is you.
Mm.
They give you no excuses. So that's the cornerstone of everything. As soon as you realize that you are the God to put yourself in heaven or the devil that can keep raising hell, that's just you. Now we could say, now that goes into the traumas and all that because, like I said, a lot of adults whine, moan, and cry about something that's affecting their life, and they really just making an excuse. It's not affecting your life. Your attitude towards it is affecting your life. In the nation, they teach you you're not poor. Poor is not a it's not a condition of your pocket, how much money you have. Poor is your attitude towards your life, your attitude towards your money. Poor, you have a poor attitude towards cleaning up your room. That's what's poor. So we what I don't argue the differences between religion, number one, because the difference between a Muslim and a Christian is about three or four. But the
Mm.
similarities are infinite.
Right,
So
right.
the people that argue over religion just are warmongers. They just want to argue. Because if me and you have 97 things in common and we fuss about the two things we don't have in common, we just want to fuss. So that's it. So the reason the Nation of Islam, like you said about your what you say, your uncle-in-law or
Yeah, my
whatever,
uncle. Yeah, uncle through marriage.
everybody's seen Malcolm X. It transforms life that quickly because they pound in your brain that it's you. It's not
Mm.
the drugs. It's not the way you was raised. It's not your past traumas. It's you. You can forgive all those things now, release all those things, and you can start living a better life now. Elijah Muhammad, the one that taught Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, and Muhammad Ali, he said, set yourself in heaven at once. You ain't
Hmm.
got to die to go there. Clean up your life and create a own heaven for you right here. You know what I'm saying? So that's the basis of it. The religion. So because I don't get into the differences, because the differences are is very few. But
Hmm.
my friend I talked to, like, I'm a Muslim. She, oh, you always got a Bible. Yeah, it's the same book. Muslims make no distinction between none of the prophets.
Mm.
We make no distinction between other prophets. And one thing that Mr. Farrakhan preaches a lot is whether you're a Jew, whether you're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, we all agree on one person, and that's Abraham. He's the father of religion. Then Mr. Farrakhan said, well, what was the name of his religion? It had no name. He obeyed God. That's the point blank. If we get to that position and we go there and we cool. Now, what that does for you as a person, remember I was speaking about that inner voice?
Hmm.
That inner voice is two of them in there. One's a God and one's the devil. The
Right.
problem is the problem is back to consumption, exercise. Whatever you put the most time and effort in is what you'll be most successful. If you put time into suppressing the God in you and listening to the devil, that makes you devil. And you are so. I used to talk to people, and I had a friend I talked to, and I'd be like, and let's open up a donut shop. And she would say, what if we don't get no customers? And I would look her in the eye and say, well, what if we do? Some people default negative. Negative is devil, positive is God. Alkaline is God, acidic is devil. It's a balance. It's the yin and the yang. So if you spend enough time exercising those demons, that's your default. But once you
Mm.
start praying you're exercising. In the Nation of Islam, we don't believe in praying to a God as God. We believe praying to what's in you and bringing that out.
Wow, that's nice.
So prayer is the exercising of bringing that God forward. So your instinct with God first. What would God do? Boom, like this, as opposed
Right,
to how we and what you talking about your uncle. The transformation is he used to go by this devil. Now he's
right.
going by his God. Same individual. Same
I
individual.
see it. I see it in him because his spirit, it's almost like they say when you're around somebody, you can kind of feel their energy. You can kind
No,
of
that's real.
feel you can feel that that's in the way, even the way he talks. He takes his time. He's thoughtful. And it's almost like he's kind of going inside, having a conversation with himself, and then he puts it out into the world. So I just wanted to level set a little bit about, because there may be some trigger words that people hear and they're like, well, what's up with that?
We take
And
it
I
on.
just think a little clarity, a little
So
clarity, and focus on the good part of that. Because what you're saying is that's kind of what you guys do. Let's see what's inside of me, what's good. Let's bring that out. What part of God is in me? But I just wanted to share that, man. I just thought that was important because there's so many
and
exceptions.
that's true in every religion. When I tell people, if you believe Jesus is God, all he did was manifest himself into the wholeness of God. He if Jesus said, deny yourself. That just means your opinions, your attitude, your lust, your desires, deny that. You have to deny that to come oneness with God. So to what you just said about your uncle, he thinks first. I used to, my wife would fly off the handle, I'll fly off the handle. Then I said, then I've got, you know what? You just talking. I'm gonna let you wrestle with your demons. I don't have to.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right,
So, and what happens is energy is real to just to what you spoken to. So my demons can aggravate your demons. But if you're God first, I tell people all the time, God is superior over devil too. So I always tell people, I'm not gonna let your demons affect my God. So I'm gonna take the God route. I'm gonna be patient with you. Elijah Muhammad said you should think 6 times before you open your mouth. That's what Jones was practicing. And what we need jerk with everything, most of us. We need jerk. So when something comes into you, and used to be a time I just react. Now I'll be like, you know what? I ain't got to do this. This doesn't benefit me as a person. This argument don't even make sense. Like, I don't have to have this argument. Hey,
right.
go ahead. And then my daughter always she's got this love head. You got it.
Yep, yep,
You
yep.
got it.
I
Too
love
many
it.
people get twisted in the right and wrong, want to be right, last word. And a lot of that stuff I tell people is spiritually emotional immaturity. Like I was speaking with one of my friends, and I was telling them, like, in the case of a lot of, it's unfortunate that a lot of our sisters think that because you can yell, cuss, and fuss, that's effective. A 4-year-old can throw a fit. What
Hmm.
takes strength is to control yourself, collect yourself, and effectively deal with your problem. That's real strength.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's true. Um, it takes a special person to be able to do that. Um, and and I'm so one more thing I wanted to touch on a little bit is how when I you had some pretty good energy when I met you. We laughed a little bit. You know, when you think about like being at the barbershop, what role does lightening things up, using humor, laughter as a tool to kind of help us deal with our mind and our relationships and the traumas? Have you found that to be helpful?
Yeah, well, barbershop is all jokes. So, yeah, very, very much so. But like even in life, so you said energy. I'm a firm believer that when I was talking to you, I had the bottle of water when we met, and the energy is real. It's like I tell people, you can't see electricity, but your light on lets you know it's a physical thing, even though you can't see it. Our energy is the same way. So when you can tell when you're around a person and you can really feel it. Infants, babies, toddlers are great at it. A toddler almost knows instantly what kind of energy you got. A lot of they say people with high vibration are good with animals. They can get around horses, things like that, because they all feel this energy. So when people come into the shop, number one, I deal with so many attitudes, so many walks of life. I can't afford to have an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm dealing with I got a senior, older lady, 70 years old, cut her hair off. She just want to talk about God. The next guy could be a street cat out on the block. The next one, I got the chief of police is one of my clients. You know what I'm saying? The next one, just an old guy, him and his wife fuss all the time, so he don't have nobody to talk to at home. So he got 3 weeks worth of stuff stored up. He want to run by me. And one of the hazards of of that job, which everybody think being a barber is just an easy job for a lot of certain extent. But the hazard is dealing with taking on other people's problems, emotions, and things like that. You have to listen. You have to suck in a lot of garbage every day. So people bounce a lot of things off you. So, but that energy is real. So when we met, I could feel. I felt now. I spoke. Hey, brother, how you doing? Well, I could feel it. But what really happened is when you started talking, I was like, man, it clicked about the health and the wholeness and all that, metabolic and all that, because I'm there already.
Appreciate your commitment to your spiritual journey and just to helping people. So I'm going to keep doing it. Like I said, you do your thing. Glad we connected. Glad you had a chance to share your perspective. And I hope we continue to connect in the future as well. So as we wrap up, for those who checked us out today, we talked about relationships. We talked about the trauma the relationships can cause. And I want to wrap up just mentioning a few things about the importance of having healthy relationships and the importance, whether it's the spiritual part of the relationship you have with your God, rather it's the relationship with that significant other at home or the kids or even at work or play. All relationships should be built on trust, honesty, mutual respect, and really never should be built on trying to control somebody else. That should never happen. It should be grounded in each person recognizing, and respecting each other in a way that honors each person. So I really think that's important. Make sure your relationships are filled with open communication, trust, allowing individuals to be individuals, understanding, make sure there's intimacy, and of course, mutual respect. I think if we do that, no matter what relationship we're talking about, we're going to be successful. I speak of struggle often, and if you're in a relationship, there's going to be struggle. And it's okay to have struggle. The goal is to have tools so you can work together so you can get through those struggles together. So if we can do that, now we have a recipe for success. So if you know anybody who's needing to hear something about relationships, something about trauma, this may be the episode to share. So make sure to share this episode with those who you care about who may need to hear that message from Brother Muhammad. So for those who checked us out today, I appreciate you. I value your time. And until we have another episode of the Protecting Your Nest podcast, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest.